The best way to predict the future is to create it. You're listening to We Are Future Talk series, the show that helps you to future-proof your career, your team, and your business.
We give you tangible insights to reimagine leadership and talent development for a more complex, more connected, and more competitive environment so you can stay on top of your game.
Hi, I'm Petra Singh, founder and lead consultant for brand and talent at the 360 Talent Co. and Impact.
And my name is Jen Ryan, lead consultant for global teams and culture at the 360 Talent Co.
Make sure you subscribe to get weekly tips and tricks on all things future of work.
And it would mean the world to us if you can leave us a rating and review so we can help more leaders to create the future together.
Now let's dive in and take control over your future. Welcome back to another We Are Future Talk series. And today is a continuation of our last episode where we started to talk about the drivers that change the way of work, but also the key skills needed to thrive in this new economy. And we talked about the first 3 drivers in our last episode, but if you haven't listened to it, go back. We still give you a quick snapshot of what those 6 drivers according to the Institute of Futures are. So the first one was extreme longevity.
Second one was computational world.
Superstructured organizations is number 3.
Globally connected world is number 4.
New media ecology, number 5.
And finally, the rise of smart machines and systems.
Today we're talking about the 3 drivers: superstructured organizations, globally connected world, and new media ecology, but also what kind of skill sets do you need in order to strive in this environment. So Jen, superstructured organizations, what is it?
So it isn't a term probably that we use in everyday language, but really it's emphasizing or looking at the different social technologies that are emerging and driving the way that we interact and produce content, but also how we do business, or the creation of how we do business. So the rise of superstructured organizations means that we're becoming a lot more connected, we're becoming a lot more social in the way that we make decisions. So that's a good thing in terms of, it's allowing people to be more collaborative, it's encouraging cross-cultural decision-making, cross-functional decision-making, and really that essence of having an environment that fosters innovation and creativity. So one of the key skill sets to start practicing, if you aren't already, is around having a design mindset. So solving for problems that don't exist yet, and doing so in such a way that is not restricted by the level of creativity or the level of imagination that you can have. So where we were probably naturally a very risk-averse or conservative type of business or organisation, it's now actually something that we encourage people to think big or think outside the box, and that needs to be the normal way of thinking now, because we are trying to solve for things that never existed yet, so nobody can be expert at those things.
And not knowing what the future holds often creates this scarcity mindset, whereas with design mindset you actually take away this fear, because what it means in very practical terms is that you are trialing some new ideas on a small scale after you've done your research, created a prototype, implemented in a safe environment, and tested the outcome, to then see, does it make sense for us to scale in the business, or is it something that we just should let go?
Yeah, absolutely. And not be scared to fail at something. It's not necessarily failure, it's just progress through that journey. And I think too, on an individual basis, when we're looking at careers, don't necessarily go for the jobs that you know that you can do or that you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
You will end up investing your time into something that you don't actually necessarily learn any extra from. Because, for example, I've worked with people who have moved into areas that are a passion of theirs or of some interest, but maybe they haven't specifically worked in. So you'll get accountants working on engineering problems, or you'll get engineers that are working on computer problems. You'll be surprised the types of actual capability you have in these spaces if you're open to put that on your agenda in terms of your career pivot, so to speak.
Yeah, and another practical advice on how you can actually make it work for you when you consider a change in career but not quite sure where to start. Design mindset means you experience before you buy. You try before you buy. This is what I want to say. Basically, look for volunteering opportunities. Create projects for yourself where you can see what it actually is like to do this type of work. Ask people who are already in this industry or in this profession what the day-to-day looks like. So it's about tapping your toes in the water before you make the jump and see if it's the right move for you, or you've learned, you've experienced, and you discover that it actually isn't. This is how you can minimize your own risk.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a real sustainable way of creating other opportunities without, having the fear of having too much, banking on the fact that it works. And I think that's a really, really great way to do it. And I think people have appetite for working with freelancers or contractors for that very reason, because they absolutely see the benefit in it. It's win-win for both businesses and for people.
Yeah, 100%. And then moving on to our next key skill, virtual collaboration. So important, especially given that we can tap into a global skill set now. But Jen, can you talk a little bit more, what does virtual collaboration mean and how can we get better at it?
Yeah, so essentially it's what you would think by the term virtual, in the sense that it's not necessarily in person, and collaboration, that is collaborating in a way with people who potentially haven't collaborated with before. Now, there is a skill in it. So whether it's working with different cultures or working with remote workers, it doesn't really matter. Communication needs to change when we're not in the same environment. So the same way if Petra and I were working from the same office every day, which we don't, by the way, I could just see based on how she was working, if she needed to go get a coffee with me, we could do some brainstorming in offsite or something like that. You can still create the same kind of feelings or the same kind of creativity, but you just have to think about it differently in a virtual space. So in the same way you can't physically see where they are at any given point, it may be that you need to be more overt in your conversation or more transparent in your conversation to when you want to create spaces to collaborate with that person or with your team.
That comes back to clarity. Clarity what you expect, clarity about the outcome, what you actually want to achieve, and clarity about how you collaborate from the attention point of view. Where do you save files? How do you name those files so everyone is on the same page? Have you got a structure in place that it's just easy for you to access the same information without having to go back and forth an hour before you actually start working? Because this is where you lose all the efficiency that virtual collaboration brings with it, and create more complexity, and we are all about taking out the complexity.
There's so many different dimensions to virtual collaboration. For example, learning styles or personality types. Like some of us are more extroverted than others, and so therefore really enjoy the interaction between different thoughts and thinking, whereas some people like to sit down and reflect and then contribute to the conversation or the creativity. And knowing how to not only sense check that with individuals, but even in terms of a group setting where you're getting the best work or the best productivity out of people is essentially another part of virtual collaboration, and making sure that you're optimizing this skill in a way that actually drives the best productivity.
So we talked about design mindset and also virtual collaboration. The third key skill in order to strive in the future of work with superstructured organizations and more globally connected world is cross-cultural competency. Jen, what does that mean?
So, it's very similar to virtual collaboration, but this is specifically looking at the cultural aspect. So, if you have been listening to previous episodes, we talk a little bit about social intelligence or cultural intelligence and having an empathy or an understanding of how different cultures impact the different thinking, the different value sets that people bring to the table. And so the competency or the skill of understanding how that mechanism of cross-culturalism can change the way that teams work together or how leaders interact with you or anything like that is really, really important. It's not as straightforward as a result, because unless you have a really intimate knowledge of a culture and how it does shape the way that people work, it is sort of something that you can only gain through experience. But if you're not sure, again, it's like everything that we've talked about. Have communication, talk about it, ask questions, be curious, don't make any assumptions along the way, and just be a real sponge to learning from different people. So just because you communicate one thing to one person doesn't mean the same message is being resonated in the same way to other people. That's the wonderful nature of cross-culturalism, is that we can't predict or dictate that to the point of, I guess, where AI could predict how we work together. And so it is a bit of learning and it is a bit of leadership as well.
Excellent. And lucky last, we've got new media ecology as our driver for the future of work. And what new media ecology means is that we've got more tools available for us to collaborate virtually, to communicate with our team members that go way beyond just text. Voice search is one of those examples that are definitely on the rise. So the question is, how can we embrace new media ecology as a driver, and what kind of skill sets do we need to embrace that?
Yeah, this is a really exciting space to play in because there are so many different communication tools that are being developed every day, essentially. So there are some tools that are really great for project management, and they encourage different kinds of working together within teams and within different kinds of projects. And then another example is you've got some great tools or platforms that encourage different ways to collaborate with each other or be creative with each other. So I've seen it work in learning environments where different students that have signed up for different courses have essentially a different conversation based on the different subjects that they're learning, and then some will be specific to the learning that they're getting from tutors, for example. So you can actually filter or categorize your different conversations, maybe your 20, 30 conversations under the one team or the one project, and to help you make sense of what you're having conversations about, categorize or keyword some of these different themes or topics so that you know who to bring in for different kinds of conversations as well. And that's making us change the way that we not only give information, but also how we receive information.
Yeah, and that comes down to also social intelligence, which is one of the key skills that we need to embrace the new media ecology. How do different people respond to different kind of communication style? So for example, in my teams, my designers, they're all on Trello, and we track the status on any creative projects on Trello because they're very visual. But then more admin and not repetitive tasks, but more admin instruction focused people, we are communicating on Slack, where you can track every conversation and the information way back in the day. You can upload files, and they want to have more the text-based information.
Yeah.
And then if we've got freelancers who just drop in more casually, we can communicate via Zoom or via Skype easily for a once-off, and we can also record it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even just reflecting on the way that I work, because of the nature of how I do my work, it's quite consultative, or it's me in meetings all the time, so I'm not physically in front of a computer or at the same workstation all the time. And so in terms of people getting a hold of me to make decisions or to ask for advice, I very much always have to have some kind of portable device to interact on. And similarly, a lot of my sit-down or admin work is only a small percentage because my team support me in organising all of that, because where I spend my most value is in creating environments where people are coming up with new decisions or building teams or creating some high performance in group environments. So it's not necessarily that I can use new media in the same way that, say, Petra does in her example. And it's not to say one way is right and one way is wrong. It's just saying there are very different ways that we work, and knowing how you work within all of those different mechanisms is really important.
Yeah. So again, just to be clear, what are those 5 key skills that are needed to embrace new media ecology, but also to thrive in a globally connected world with those superstructured organizations is novel and adaptive thinking. So how can you apply what you know now in a new environment or within a new team? Social intelligence, how can you learn better? How can you pick differences up? How can you be more open for other ways of thinking? New media literacy is all about how quickly can you learn new technology coming on board by, again, playing around, experiencing it. Computational thinking. How can you be more focusing on how a computer would work rather than the personal bias influence? And lastly, the cognitive load management. Because we've got so much information coming to us all the time, how can you select information from just noise and make information into insights that you can then take tangible actions from it?
And this is a little one more of the virtual collaboration, the cross-cultural competency. So knowing we have global workforces working with us, and knowing that more and more we are working in location-independent situations, they're very important skills to also hone into.
And lastly, the design mindset. Try before you buy. Create environments where you can test in a safe environment. Experience what it actually means, and then decide if you want to roll it out on a bigger scale. Bigger scale could mean you actually pivot in this career, or you actually set up this kind of function in your business, or you want to establish a new branch, whatever it might be for you. So I hope you enjoyed our takeouts from the drivers and the key skills needed for the future of work.
So this wraps up the second part of a two-part episode with future skill sets and how you can start developing those skill sets today. I hope you've enjoyed listening. We look forward to that next session with you.
And don't forget, you can download the takeouts from wearefuture.com if you didn't get to take those notes. See you next time. And that wraps up another insightful conversation about the future of work. And now we want to hear from you. What was the biggest takeaway from this conversation? Make sure you share your learnings on LinkedIn and also tag our guest speakers. And of course, if you or somebody you know has some more interesting take on the future of work, send us an email to contact@wearefuture.com. Until next time, and keep creating the future of work.